Welcome everyone to Working Through It Wednesday with the Behavioral Alliance of South Carolina. Today we have Miss Nguyen, a school counselor, who's going to be here with us to share a little bit about how she plays a role as her mental health support within her own elementary school. Miss Nguyen graduated from Virginia Tech. She went there for her undergraduate and graduate degrees. She's had various different backgrounds that she's going to tell us a little bit more about. But also she worked in a rehab facility, a girls group home, and this is her 11th year as a school counselor, going into her 11th year. Woohoo! She enjoys anything outside, cycling, running, yoga, kayaking. That is her self-care. So she's here today to tell us a little bit about how to support self-care and wellness within the schools. And as you get to know her, she is amazing and a great person. So we're thankful to have you. And please remember at the end of the session to follow the QR code and fill out our survey for the Behavioral Alliance of South Carolina. So without further ado, I'll allow Ms. Nguyen to say hello.
Hello, I'm Diemchi Nguyen. I am, as Erin said, a school counselor. I had a lot of interest into school counseling when I did a work-study program in college with elementary kids, which is primarily who I've been working with this whole time as a school counselor, and really enjoyed it. However, I didn't want to become a teacher. I was like, there's got to be something else. After college, I worked in a group home for teenage girls, and I enjoyed that as well. But I figured combining the two was probably the perfect career path for me. So that's where it went, and that's just what I've been doing since.
I think you found the right path for sure. In reference to school mental health supports in schools, how do you see yourself as a school counselor fitting in?
Sure. One of the greatest resources we've gotten recently is the Department of Mental Health has provided a mental health counselor for us. I'm able to do fun things here with small groups and guidance lessons. Those are, I think, really great for tier 2, tier 3 types of children who may not need intense interventions. And I find it fun, but it's also just really beneficial for the kids, and the families have been really supportive as well as the teachers. So having said that, just being a referral resource for those families, because a lot of people aren't aware of that. Just being that person and advocate for the student really helps. Going back to the small counseling sessions that I have, that's just a really great way for me to see kids weekly, so they can work on anything ranging from anger management, ADHD, just anxiety, that sort of thing. So it's a great way for me to check in with them as well. One of my favorite things that I do here is a check-in. A lot of people do a check-in, check-out, and basically it allows me to see a child every day. And sometimes people are like, what motivates you to come to school in the mornings? It's the check-ins. It's like, I want to see how this kid's doing. And so they just build this routine in where they come to my office and we just talk about whatever it is they're working on, whether it's just improving sleep habits. And yes, elementary school kids are aware of how poorly they sleep. So that sort of thing, and just their behaviors in the classroom. So I find myself really useful, and I've been so lucky to have the support of administrators to help me implement a school counseling program to the best of my ability.
I have seen you, and you are very important in your role. And those kids love the check-ins too. I think that that is their main reason for getting up and coming to school as well. So thank you for sharing that. The check-ins are so much fun. You do some really great small groups, and I know you stay on it. You've got a schedule, and you are there. And you're also, just like you said, an advocate for every child in the building. They are so lucky to have you. So I know that those are probably your high leverage practice things that have the biggest impact within the day, that within your day. So thank you for sharing those. And then I'd love to talk a little bit about social emotional learning. So I know that's always been a priority of yours, to focus on social emotional learning. But following the pandemic, how has that altered the way that you approach social emotional learning within the school?
Sure. In a moment, I'm going to move over to some slides because we have altered a lot, and we have to, like, I mean, I could sit here and say it's just been difficult and it's been a long process, but you just have to roll with it. And so I'm going to go through some slides that I will share with you all on how we have had to alter our school for SEL.
Alter or pivot. I mean, you've got so many different words that we could bring up to say that we're
Right.
just providing social emotional learning however we can. And I know that you are.
Sure. So I'm just going to share the screen. So here we are. All right. So guidance has been altered both virtually and in person. Basically, in person, there's obviously less movement. We don't want kids to, just sadly interact with each other physically, just for, safety purposes.
For safety, yes.
Yeah, we're not able to have kids doing like the little circle times on the carpets and that sort of thing. And I use that when I come in for guidance. So there's less movement. There's more verbal engagement. So instead of, really seeing people's reactions, sometimes you can read them with their eyes. I'm encouraging more responses verbally, so we can really understand where someone's coming from. And things I just didn't realize until I started planning guidance lessons are larger visuals. Because we're not able to have these kids on, the carpet to look at the Promethean board or smartboard, larger visuals are great because they're going to have to see things from their seat.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that. That's so
I
true.
know, like I was saying, I was just like, oh, I need to make bigger visuals. For virtual, I've realized the lessons have to be very interactive. So I've just found different ways to engage kids through the chat box and through video. And some of the things we've done are icebreaker style activities so they can practice social skills. Even with the little ones, we would have students just practice saying good morning, and then they pick a friend, or I assist them on picking a friend to say good morning, Miss Schurter, and that sort of thing. Just because, sometimes we don't think about that when we open up Zoom. We naturally do it as adults, but children don't necessarily practice that. And that's the same thing I usually do in the classroom when they're in circle time, or in the circle time positions on the rug, but I encourage that as well in the video. And then also technical guidance. A lot of the older ones are telling me how to work Zoom, but the younger ones are like, I don't know what you mean. Like, how do I mute it? So it's sometimes just helping them with utilizing whatever platform you have. And that goes along with just the classroom management, appropriate video usage with a lot of the older kids. They may have, their silly backgrounds. I had a student the other day, like when he looked at the video, Michael Jackson's face came up, and I was like, oh, that's fun, but I want to see your face. So just that sort of thing, and using appropriate language in the chat box. So those are sort of the the ways that guidance lessons have changed. The content has changed as well. We in Charleston County School District are really focused on SEL classroom curriculum where the teachers implement second step. And they're not using the typical scope and sequence that they usually have. So there's more of a focus for community rebuilding. And that's really just for kids to feel safe and welcome and to really allow teachers to screen how they're doing, and also creating sort of like procedures just to help them feel safe with the pandemic and COVID. So that's the first 5 weeks of school. So that's completely changed. Guidance lessons in small groups. The curriculum has changed a bit for that. And what I've tried to do is align second step community rebuilding themes with ASCA standards. So I've just redone all my lessons basically. And also in response to the cultural climate, I'm focusing also more on cultural competency lessons that align with the ASCA standards. So on top of the backdrop of the pandemic, we also have issues related to cultural competency that's been really pushed. We are a PBIS school, so some schools use this just to create expectations. This has been created differently, and I kind of hit on this a little bit when we were talking about just expectations in the classroom for guidance, but teachers have been given some guidance and templates for creating PBIS in the classroom, and just different things that are in here are just taking turns to speak in Zoom meetings or wearing your mask in the hallway. So all of these things, they have to change, and like I said, you just kind of have to go with it sometimes.
Yeah, setting the new behavioral expectations and boundaries. So it's a
Right.
new world we're living in, but I love that you're doing it even within the classroom setting.
Mm-hmm. One more thing about the just the changes with the pandemic. I know I have a lot of slides for this one, but we've been really focusing on check-ins, and I think this is really important right now because even in this is my third day, there have been students that have expressed stress over the pandemic, and so we give students the opportunity every day to check in with their emotions. We do this in person, and I also have a virtual Google form customized for every classroom, so that they can do check-ins with their teacher, and then I have access to it too. So that's the last thing on how we've altered our guidance in SEL for the pandemic.
That's wonderful. I know that you always work super hard, but now you've kicked it into high gear. Thank you for sharing. Quick question for you about adult social emotional learning. Do you have any insight into how adults can support their own social emotional learning and awareness? I know we talked a lot about the kids in the building, but any insight into the adults as well?
Sure. Along with the SEL check-ins that the students do, where their emotional self-awareness can strengthen the pathways to their brain, and I can explain that in just a bit. I've also encouraged teachers to do that, and I did that in a PD that we did earlier before school started, and just explained the benefits of a check-in for adults and children, and basically that providing a time to check in and just ask yourself how you're doing allows you to strengthen the pathway to your brains in your brain for a lot of times, I don't want to say better, but often more thoughtful reactions. So for this chart that I found, this indirect pathway allows us to really think about how we're feeling and maybe others around us and how they may react to how we're feeling, and just give us a little bit more time for an emotional response that we're probably less likely to regret, as opposed to the direct pathway where maybe we're not checking in with ourselves and we're just going instantly into like reaction mode, which is sometimes needed. That direct pathway is sometimes not the outcome that we want. So I know that's like we're delving deep into this, but it's just a check-in, and it really does help, and it's really answering like that question of how you're doing. So that's one way. And then I talked about stress with adults and with adults and students and family members, and I found this great women's health just picture that allows you to understand like chronic stress and the things that we do to just continue that cycle. And if we're not able to recognize how to deal with it, things like attention, perception, short-term memory go down, and that goes with students, but it goes with us too as educators. If that stress cycle just continues, so does our attention and just the cellular changes in our brain. So I really push that and encourage that for our staff.
That's wonderful. It's just a visual reminder of how important it is to be mindful of our thoughts and check in, build a little bit of self-awareness. Like you said, it's just sometimes even doing it with the teachers, they can model it for the students, and that's a huge piece, a great way to get started for anyone. Thank you for sharing. And last question for you, Ms. Nguyen. In reference to back to the student social emotional learning, do you have any insight as to how students can support their own social emotional learning or their own self-care to build that up within themselves? Any students that are watching this or any parents that they can recommend for their children, things that they can do to support their own social emotional learning?
Sure. I'm kind of piggybacking on what I've already said, but I just think mindfulness is huge, and it doesn't mean, if you're always practicing mindfulness that all of your actions are perfect. That's not exactly what it means. It's really just asking yourself, and honestly asking yourself, like, how are you doing? And providing that opportunity to really think about that allows you to reach towards that mindfulness state where you are becoming more aware of how you're feeling and how that may come off to other people. Some suggestions I have for that is to track emotions towards any incidences of the day, either mentally. Sometimes it's sometimes kids don't want to write things down, or with a diary. So that just allows them to just have different ways to reflect on the day. I also encourage just reflection with others, and that's with adults too. Just reviewing your day, and really answering the how are you doing and how was your day, going through and just mindfully coming up with things that you did that day to that caused you to feel a certain way. And I start off the school year usually with this lesson called Bucket Filling, and it's a book by Carol McLeod, and I'm not trying to endorse anyone. It's just something that I've used, and it's called Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And it basically uses those same concepts on how you treat other people and how others treat you, and the idea is just having a full bucket where a lot of positive thoughts and feelings are there in your bucket that everyone has, and protecting your bucket as well as not dipping into someone else's bucket. And I know it sounds very abstract, but it's something children really understand. So that book is a great way to also just support SEL, and it's pretty simple.
Thank you for sharing. I know I read that book as well, and the same thing. As soon as I read it, I was like, this makes total sense. Now I get it. We realize it, but it's a great visual, a really good reminder, an easy way for students to see exactly what they're doing with their words and how they're creating positive self talk and things within themselves and building up other people, and how that can really build our own self compassion. So, thank you for that reminder. That's a great one.
You're welcome.
Well, Ms. Nguyen, thank you so much for joining us. Did you have anything else you'd like to share today? I don't want to cut you off. I know that was a ton of wonderful information.
No, that's it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. From the Behavioral Alliance of South Carolina, this was Working Through It Wednesday with our wonderful school counselor, Ms. Nguyen, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.